Bismillah, walhamdulillah, wa la ilaha illallah, wallahu akbar. Today we want to finish, inshallah, chapter 25. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, during that chapter, is emphasizing the fact that the Prophet Muhammad alayhi salam is indeed the Prophet of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who came with the Quran, and the Quran is the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And after that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala at the end of the chapter talked about the believers, the slaves of the merciful, how those slaves of the merciful should act, should interact, and how they should ask Allah for. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the last verse, in the verse number 74, which we were discussing yesterday, is talking about the family. And it's talking about those believers who are looking to have offspring. And this is a big responsibility. And the reason for them they having an offspring, number one, is to make them obedient to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. An offspring, children, are an investment. It can lead the person either to the paradise, or he can go bankrupt and lose that investment, and at the end will lead him to hellfire. How is that? If you raise your child, you know what is good and bad in the society. If you're aware of the surroundings, if you raise your child who will be conscious that there is God, you'll encourage him to be obedient to God, doing the prayers, going in an Islamic environment where there is no filth, where there is no obscenity, where there is no nudity, where there is no sexualization, all that stuff. It's you as a parent, how you mold that child. From there, that child, if he become obedient to Allah, to God, he will be obedient to you. He will be respectful to you. Number one. So when you get old, you find somebody who's obedient to you. Somebody who calls you and asks you, how you doing? How's your health? Do you need me to take you to the doctor? On the other hand, if the person doesn't really recognize God, and you don't give the time, you don't give or do the effort to raise these kids in an Islamic way, in a way where they recognize Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, recognize their message and their mission, the obedience, the respect, the love, the kindness, and let the school or let the outside environment or let the TV shows or let the TikTok or let Facebook or leave the video games teach them how they should behave, how they should act. What you will see is a disaster. And Allah will hold you responsible because you are the guardian. You're the one who's supposed to guide that ship as an adult. So number one, you're supposed to know the truth, which is Islam. You're supposed to know the truth about the Quran, understand it. You're supposed to become an example. That's why the child will follow an example. You're supposed to have the effort and the time, to do the effort and time with all kinds of resources to raise that child obedient to Allah. Because that's your investment. Every single thing that child will do, you'll get a share of it. You'll die and your child on earth praying, and you're the one who taught him praying, you'll get the reward for it. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is looking at all of the children and having offspring as an investment. I want to have these kids obedient to Allah. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in this ayat is the believer ask Allah for qurrata a'yun. Indeed, coolness of the eye. like offspring, which are called, like he happy when you see them. When you see them pray, when you see them fast, when they see them memorizing the Quran, or reading the Quran, understanding and pondering upon the Quran, you'll be happy because you're getting rewarded for that. And then you'll gain the benefits after that. On the other hand, if you don't really care, the person doesn't care about his children and let everybody else raise his children for him, that child can be a reason for that person to go at the end in hell. Unless you do everything, you teach the child the morals of the Islam, the morals of the Quran, the morals of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, and the child choose not to. But you have to do the effort. Like you have, for example, the son of the Prophet Noah. His father is a preacher he preached Islam for 950 years. So what's happening? He has a child and his wife. They were false believers. They didn't believe in him. They didn't have iman. They didn't have belief. Then Noah's not responsible because he did all what he can. That is exactly the attitude. You should do all what you can and ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the fulfillment or for the guidance. وَجْعَلْنَا لِلْمُتَّقِينَ إِمَامًا, and make us, Ya Allah, our leaders and role models. So it's another thing for a husband to be a role model for his children. If you come to the masjid to do the prayers, your child will follow you. But you cannot ask him to do prayers and you don't pray on time. The same thing for the mother. Each one is a leader in his home. Each one is a role model. And he needs to be followed. So the child, if you do the wrong thing, the child will follow the wrong thing. If you lie, you see your child is lying. If you say the truth or you're truthful, you see the child is doing the truth. If you're respectful to others, you see your child is respectful. The child is basically a mirror. He does what his parents do. So the parents should be the righteous models and leaders for their household. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said that He's concluding the outcome for all of this. أُولَٰئِكَ يُجْزَوْنَ الْغُرْفَةِ. Indeed, these believers, these slaves of the Rahman, of the Merciful, they will receive a mansion, a very lofty mansion with high ceilings. Why, Ya Allah? بِمَا صَبَرُوا. Because they were patient. Patient? Yes. Remember, any good deeds you do require patience. Because you have to be consistent. For example, prayers. You have to pray 5 times a day. This is required patience and self-discipline. Fasting, for example, in Ramadan, requires self-discipline. A lot of people cannot do it. So, doing the right thing. Do you guard your tongue, guard your eyes, guard your ears. All these require discipline. So the person has to be patient. On the other hand, Allah has to test the person. Everybody has a different test. Some people get tested in their children. Some people get tested in their health. Some people get tested in their money. Some people get tested in their wealth. Some people get tested, name it. The believer has to have discipline and patience when he deals with calamity. The believers who are in that higher status, who preach Islam and preach Quran and preach La ilaha illallah, they will be attacked physically. abused verbally and physically attacked all the time. They have to have patience. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that because of your patience, because your ability to discipline yourself and control and guard yourself, there's Jannah for you, the paradise is for you. Well, you're not just the paradise in it, وَيُلَقَّوْنَ فِيهَا تَحِيَّةً وَسَلَامًا. Indeed, there will all the time there are greetings. Name it, from the malaika, from the angels, greetings from the other fellows in the paradise. You'll be sharing greetings, you'll be sitting and talking, you'll be having fun over there. وَسَلَامًا, indeed will be peaceful place. Why? Because in this life, the true believer, he won't have peace, honestly. Because you're all the time try to protect yourself from the influence of the outside environment, from the influence of the wrong teachings, from the influence of what the majority believe in. So you will trying to protect yourself from the attacks from everybody around you. So you won't have peace. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the hereafter, He will give you the peace. He tell you, here is the peace. Like Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, 13 times there were trials for his, or attacks for his assassination, to kill him. 13 times they tried to kill him throughout his life, which is 23 years. Prophet Muhammad. So at that point, Allah is telling him, as his followers, here is you go. There's peace here. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He said, خَالِدِينَ فِيهَا. Indeed, in that paradise, everlasting, no death, no pain, no death, no hunger. Khali, everlasting. Hasunat, the best outcome, the best place to reside, and the best place to settle, that paradise. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ending a message, that whole surah, that whole chapter was one verse. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying to everybody who think that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not harm him, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not gonna do anything harmful to him. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, why قُلْ مَا يَعْبَأُ بِكُمْ رَبِّي. Why should I care about you? Why should I care about you, O human beings? لَوْلَا دُعَاؤُكُمْ. If you don't obey. So the condition which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will have for His caring about you as a believer, or caring about anybody else, is about what? His obedience. So Allah will care about those who are obedient to Him. Allah, He will take care of those who are obedient to Him. Allah will protect those who are obedient to Him. Allah will take care of the affairs of those who are obedient to Him. So if you're not obedient to Allah, if you don't have the true belief about Allah, which is Islam, and following Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not gonna care about you. He can send you messages. He will give you chances. He will give you chances to come back. But at a certain time, He's not gonna care. Because His main test is obedience. Either you're going to obey him, or obey yourself, or obey the devil, the shaitan. So Allah will not going to take care about you unless you obey him. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking to everybody about that. They say, people are like, oh, God will be good to me. Does he give me this and give me that? God doesn't care. The most important thing he cares about is the obedience to him. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ending that message to the disbelievers. فَقَدْ كَذَّبْتُمْ. Allah is telling them that I send you the messenger Muhammad with all signs, with all arguments, with all answers, but you still disbelieved and called him a liar. فَسَوْفَ يَكُونُ لِذَامًا. Indeed, my punishment, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that his punishment will be a mandatory. The punishment will be an obligation. The punishment will eventually happen and come. If Allah is sending somebody, and Allah is sending Muhammad for years and years and years, for people now, they're supposed to hear, they heard about the Quran for years and years and years. They heard about Islam for years and years and years. It's a time for them to read it, to understand. Because Allah will not going to protect you forever. He gave you some time to learn, to obey. Especially the Quran is asking people every logic. Quran is asking people to be righteous, to be obedient, to respect each other, to love each other. أقول قولي هذا أستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين فاستغفروه.